¡Viva Jorge Batlle! ¡Viva! Doctor Batlle, ¿cómo está? ¿Cómo anda? Recorrimos todo el rincón de Ramírez, pero todo, no veo nada sin mirar. Todo. Vamos a pasar. Yo me voy a lavar las manos. A ver, rinda acá. Él arregló por otro camino. Ahora hay que
Pasa, la llave está.
A ver, salí.
¿La mía o nomás? ¿Qué va a hacer?
Al futuro nuestro presidente, no puede ser que no viniera. ¿Cómo andás?
Bueno, vamos a comer algo, che, tengo un hambre de las 7. ¿Vieron el asado ya? ¿Vieron el asado? De lejos. A ver si están buenos los asados. Vamos. Vamos. Vamos a comenzar a... ¿Cómo andas? ¿Vos cómo andás? Ah, bueno. Doctor, cuando vaya a hacer uso de la palabra, mire que tiene el micrófono. Un poco a los gringos de comer. No quiero un mate. Don't you like one? Porque es lógico, da lugar a la formación de praderas Peralta. Seguramente la de conocer. Sí, cómo no, cómo no.
Dr. Batlle, in England, people are very interested in what's going on in Uruguay this year. There are two reasons. One is a big election year, and you're a presidential candidate.
Not yet.
Well, a possible one, I believe.
Well, we have primaries on May 28th, and till this moment, nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
We are just trying.
You're trying.
Doing our best.
What chances do you think you have?
Well, let's say 50-50.
50-50. Fair.
It's a fair
It's a
approximation,
fair.
the whole story.
Now, the other theme that interests people in Europe a lot is the question of the plebiscite, which is taking place very shortly, the 16th of April. I'd like you to tell us a little bit, in your own words, how this all began, the story of the
Well, it began 30 years ago, because it's a long story. Things in the countries doesn't appear suddenly. It's a very long story. We in Uruguay went on a slippery slope in the last 30 years. We lost our economical, social and cultural level, and out of that started in during the 60s a movement called the Movement of National Liberation, in the world well known as the Tupamaros. They thought that they can change the shape, the profile of the Uruguayan society through a guerrilla movement. During those days, we continue losing our level, our economical level, in terms of stabilized currency. Let's say we 100% of income in 1940, 256% of income in 1956, and in 1982 again 100% of income. That means that we lose a lot of everything, and that's for me was the main reason for the disturbances we suffer. First, this movement, and after that, the coup d'etat. You must remember that our last participation of the armed forces in the Uruguay government was in the last century, in 1886. In the 31st of March, 1886, was the last revolutionary movement of the young students against the military government of the last century.
There was a dictatorship here in the
Was a movement in this movement, the armed forces, well, they don't participate. It was a movement organized and conducted by two civilian leaders. One of what we call the Colorado Party, and the other one was what we call the White Party. And really, the armed forces in those days, they don't participate at all. They participate after 1973. After 100 years, also 11 years of dictatorship, and we were lucky to finish the whole thing in a peaceful way. During the first period of the legislative democratic power, we vote in March 1985 a law giving the amnesty for everybody who was in jail and that were outside the country. They came back again and reincorporate to life in Uruguay, to society. And after that, 2 years after, well, 1 year and a half after, we vote another law to give the same benefits to the people that were inside the armed forces and who act against human rights. And now we have a plebiscite. We vote in the parliament for both the laws, and we think that we need.
That's your party.
That's right, and also the vast majority of the other parties, because the White Party was led by Wilson Ferreira, who promoted also this law, and the members vote in the parliament the same way we vote. And we think that for Uruguay is the best chance to be reconciliated if we maintain this law. That's the reason why we vote yellow the next 16th of April.
Now, we understand that some pretty awful things happened during that dictatorship.
Oh, terrible.
Torture.
For instance,
children were abducted.
Oh, yes. And sometimes, you know something? In 1965, I was, as a young man, a candidate from my party to the presidency. And suddenly appeared to pay a visit to me a young medical doctor. And he told me, well, you know, George, we were students together as we were young. And he said to me, you know, George, we are members of a group of young people in Uruguay that we decided that we must change the Uruguayan way of making politics. And we heard you speaking and saying things about Uruguayan economy. And if you won the election, we can help you eliminating by arms everybody or everyone who try to impede your activities. Well, I told him, you know, Mario, that's not my way of feeling. I don't think that's out of that we can change for good anything in society. Well, he participated actively in the MLN. After participating in different assaults to different places, he emigrated to Europe. He worked in Holland and in Algeria for 10 years. and he's now back at home working in his profession. Well, the same thing happens with some military people. In those days, nobody in the army thought in a coup d'etat. Nobody. It was a consequence of this strong conflict. And more than that, we, members of the political establishment, we, members of the trade unions, we, members of the university leaders, we members of the religions, the different religions, we are all involved in this near a civil war we have had in Uruguay. It's a global social problem. It's not a problem of this part or this part. We were not as public on looking at a football match between the Tupamaros and the military forces. The whole society was involved in that.
But the people who actually committed these crimes, do you think they actually are lots of different members of the armed?